What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday, CTM. What a beautiful day to be alive. What a beautiful moment to share with all of you, wherever you are in the world right now. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What? Yesterday people were sharing with me things that have happened since they've been a part of CTM, whether that's going back over to the mist, to the middle of COVID, back into the middle of 2020. This place is very special, and I'm very honored to share this moment in time with all of you. Today, this Friday afternoon is going to be an important session as is each and every one of them, right? Let's focus on the charts. Let's focus on the technicals. We got a lot to talk about, including what the title is over here. Are we seeing shorter cycles with diminishing returns? Is there evidence of that? Is there a probability of that? And if that's occurring during these ultra easy monetary conditions, that is more than alarming. That could be the possible death of Bitcoin. We're going to focus in on that. We're going to focus in on the charts, and we're going to focus in on signal. Right now, Bitcoin trading unchanged on the day at $31,770. And if you're focusing on the charts, don't lie, right? The charts don't lie. And you know what's happening is price is going sideways. That's number one. The second thing that's happening is right now that price is what, because the charts don't lie, price is trading off of this channel support, and then it's trading off of this support down over here, right? So why anything's possible, and the support, it only holds until it doesn't hold. And if the support breaks down, we'll talk about that in a little bit during this stream over here. Because if the support doesn't hold, obviously a new leg down is coming. But if the charts don't lie, and if you're watching the charts right now, there's to be bearish on such a high time preference, that I don't see. Right now, you'd be leaning into support right now, but that would be silly. That would be so silly to lean into support over here. Why? Because you're consolidating, right? The first opportunity, if you're like a short time frame trader, is waiting for the breakout over here of that upper resistance. That would be the first thing you're doing. If you're a short-time trader and you're bearish, the first thing you're doing is waiting for a breakdown, right? But you right over here, there's no tradable trade. What are you doing? Everyone's looking around and everyone has an opinion and everyone's looking to confirm their own bias, right? But right now, the CTM, what's CTM's bias? All right, let's give it to it. Let's give it to it straight. May 14th, it was a Friday, just like today. If you have time, go back and watch that video today. Many people thought I exited my spot position. I had to clarify, I did not exit my spot position. I will not exit my spot position until the top of the bull market cycle. But I did say that everything has gotten completely muddied and that I'm getting neutral and to get neutral. And since then, things have remained unclear and have been very clear about the unclarity and very clear that the only time that they get clear for us once again is when we break outside the most important trend line in crypto, right? So if you're trading this price, has price gone anywhere since, right? We had the big, after then we had that huge breakdown, by the way. I was not looking for that. When I say get neutral, things are not clear. That does not mean short the market in a bull market. That, and then what has happened since? Well, nothing. Price has gone sideways, right? Are you trading that? And if you're trading that, why? But what has happened? People like, let me get my daily dose of hopium. For real. Let me get my daily dose of hopium. Because it's all hopium over there on CTM. The markets are crashing. What's the hopium? These are real returns. This is calculated returns, right? If you look at what's happened over the past year, right? Fully positioned in half my net worth, including my owned real estate, into Bitcoin, right? And what has happened since, right? Well, in those 12 months, we have, a return of 246%. Oh, that's hopium. That's like over 2 decades of compounded returns trading the S&Ps, right? That's over 2 decades in 12 months of trading the S&Ps. Come on, hopium, or is there more to it? Is it what's going on over here on this channel? Most people here, the majority, right? They're holding strong and they're well in the money. Why? Because we spent this whole area over here making the bullish case for Bitcoin. What was going to happen after the halving event, right? And then laying out the thesis of what we expected to transpire afterwards, right? So if you want to poke holes, everything's playing out exactly as this trade's thesis was outlined, planned, and is being executed, right? So when people talk about hopium, I think that hopium's like this catchphrase word, I guess, for people who just don't understand what's going on, right? If you're not involved, like people who miss the trade and instead of getting themselves on the right trade, how do you get yourself on the right trade right now if you're not involved? Well, we've been laying that out over the past 4 weeks, right? Or longer, talking about, well, first of all, what am I doing, right? What's the smart money doing, right? Well, I'm buying the dip, 50% correction mid-cycle, I'm buying the dip. I'm bringing up my average cost from that just above 9,000 now to just below 9,500. All right, that seems smart to me. What happens if I don't have an average cost that high? Well, what's your time preference and how long are you holding for? Really, are you looking for what happens tomorrow? Good luck, by the way. Good luck with your timing. And if you're buying into support today and right now, or selling, I'm sorry, if you're selling into support right now, you could get lucky. There's a chance that over the weekend, today, Monday, Tuesday, that this breaks down and then you got really lucky and that could be a good trade. But more often than not, selling bottoms, right, is a fool's trade. You don't sell into support. If you think that we're breaking down, then you got to be watching the market, wait for the breakdown, right? And that might waterfall down, by the way. You might not get a breakdown, retest, and resumption down, right? But buying as you're into the support, come on, what are you doing? Are you do you think that that's a smarter deployment of your capital than perhaps maybe dollar cost averaging in right now into Bitcoin? Do you think that right now under these ultra monetary conditions, and they're ultra easy, that we're seeing the end of the Bitcoin bull market mid-cycle, that we're seeing shorter cycles with diminishing returns. We're going to look at that in a second. First, I want to focus on signal. What's signal over here? Yesterday, we have Janet Yellen, the former Fed chairman, now U.S. Treasury Secretary. It's like the squid. The squid is real, right? Into all aspects of government and private institutions. They plant their tentacles, right? And she's saying, oh, she's changed her tune, because she's been telling us the whole time. If you go back and you look at January through March, she's saying, listen, the inflation is not, there's no inflation, right? And now all of a sudden she's like, okay, wait, we're going to have several more months of rapid inflation. Of rapid inflation we're going to be seeing for several more months through the end of the year. By the way, when's our expected peak of the Bitcoin bull market, right? That's into the late third quarter 2021, early fourth quarter 2021. Is it possible we enter lengthening cycles? Well, sure it is. And by how far, we'll talk about that, right? But right now, from what I continue to see is that, first of all, the Fed, Powell walked back this week, signal that like we're not tapering. We can't taper, right? That's the first one. I see the phone buzzing. I want to make sure that we got. Can you imagine we didn't have any mic going this morning? But we got mic going. We have a bunch of people hanging out, CTM style. 675 people here this morning. 174 likes. If you're here and you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button as we talk about the most important trade that matters with the greatest clarity we could offer. And then we're watching over here, right? What is this chart? What am I looking at? This looks pretty bearish. For sure, in downtrends, I like to sell into resistance. There's no question about that. Now, if you're waiting for this thing to roll over before looking to sell, that's a good thing. But I can't imagine buying this, right? I can't imagine buying this, right? And everyone looking at this knows what you're looking at, right? You're looking at a weekly chart of Bitcoin, right? Bullish or bearish, you decide. It's pretty clear, right? So we're looking at this chart. This is from, the reason I'm showing trading shot today is because the chart we're going to be looking at of the past cycles is a chart that he drew up on Trading View. Trading shot over here, right? Brought to my attention by Ted earlier in the week. Watched the video he presented. I was so happy to see someone on Real Vision given a platform that understood what's going on here with yields, or I should say shared my view. We were watching yesterday in the Discord, Kathy Wood, ARK Investments. By the way, is it Monday? The 21st of July, right? We have the major events happening. The great grayscale unlocking. And at the same time, we have, Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk sitting down with Kathy to talk about why Bitcoin incentivizes clean energy. And speaking of clean energy, it's all around you. Did you see this over here? This is yesterday. This is in Pennsylvania next year. A nuclear-powered crypto mining company is going online. Talk about clean energy and green energy. And it's not just there, by the way. It's all over the place. Early in this, I talked to you about this last week. The oldest running hydroelectric plant in the United States, over 300 years old, is now going to be mining Bitcoin because it's more profitable than selling energy back to the grid, right? And it's not just there; it's all over the place. A U.S. miner raising some money to recycle waste coal into crypto. You're seeing what is this, carbon neutral Bitcoin mining facility. This is just over here 2 weeks ago, July the 2nd. These are all recent except for this one. This is March the 26th. Kentucky got Bitcoin mining incentive bill into law. It's happening. By the time that people realize it's happening and that Bitcoin is the greatest ESG out there, it's going to be too late for everyone right now caught in the fear. And a lot of people are really caught in the fear trap right now, as they have during every time I see fear in this chart. When I look back, by the way, it's a place that I was looking to add. And you all know I added over here, right? Every other time I look back over here at where there was max fear, it's where I was selling my Bitcoin. Where I was buying Bitcoin, right? And you have to ask yourself, What's your time preference? What are you looking going forward? And where do you think we are right now? Because there's a lot of fear out there right now. CryptoQuant this morning talking about 14,550 Bitcoins being sent onto exchanges, onto Binance, getting ready for perhaps a major dump over the weekend, right? A major dump over the weekend ahead of the grayscale unlocking. It could be. It very well could be. Now, of course, we're not talking about we're only talking about inflows onto the exchange. We're not talking about what the outflows are, and we're not getting what the net was. So it's biased information, but it's scary. And anyone, who has a very bearish bias right now, they're looking at that and they're like, see, but we don't know. The last time there was some major inflows onto Binance, by the way, was a pretty scary event. What I mean by scary, it was right over here. It was on that May 14th that we went neutral, and then you saw that major record inflows onto Binance, and we did see a big dump. It could happen again. It could happen this weekend. It could happen early next week. But everyone's already prepared for that, right? Everyone is already prepared for that. So, I don't have to tell you. I don't have to tell you to get prepared that the possibility exists that we could break down. And if we break down, where are we going, right? Listen, let me give it to you straight. Nobody knows. People talking about, there's light support around 24,000, 25,000. There's some support between like 18,000. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And by the way, is there something different out there? Forget sharks. Do you have some major whales out there sitting out there waiting for that opportunity to come in and just grab, like, boom? We don't know what's going to happen. Is it, a lot of people also looking for, by the way, those that are uber bullish, right? Right. What are we, CTM? Well, look, CTM and most of the space, by the way, this is exactly where we are. Everyone right now seems to be pretty long-term bullish, right? And short-term bearish, right? And rightfully so. And rightfully so. What are we, CTM? We're waiting. Things are unclear. And we're waiting for them to get clear. When do they clear? When we break the most important trend line in crypto. Now, that message has not changed in 2 months. In 2 months, that message has not changed. Is that too much hopium for you? I don't know. But that's what it is. That's what's happening. I want to take a look at this with you. First of all, look at some on-chain volume. This is talking about where support is. Massive transactions took place. 1.86 million Bitcoin exchanged in this area. Now, what that means, by the way, to me, is that we saw a lot of weak hands. When you look at what's happening recently, you've seen people that have been holding Bitcoin, for a relatively short amount of time for the past few months, selling their Bitcoin, and the people that are buying that Bitcoin are long-term holders, like myself. Like, I bought Bitcoin over this past month, right? You all know that. I told you exactly when I was buying the dip, right? And you have people who have been positioned in and continue to be positioned in well and strong, buying the dip. And then you have a lot of people over here who don't understand the trade they were making. They didn't spend the time to do the research. They didn't spend the time watching the videos that we put out here and the work that we do each and every day, right? And they're buying Bitcoin and then they're selling Bitcoin, right? That's what's happening over here. So when I look at this, I'm saying, wow, what we've seen is a nice transition take place from weak hands to strong hands. Now, other people could look at this and say, well, if we lose that support around 30,000, there's not much in the way, right? And we are probably going to crush all the way down. Now, some people are expecting, if we break down, that it's a quick capitulation and then we spike up. That could happen, but that's not a given. Like, if you start seeing price break down and lose support, don't step in and start like trying to catch that falling knife. That's dangerous. That's very dangerous. It's a different situation, by the way, than over when I go back into the crisis, the liquidity crisis, and the March 2020 falling knife. I did step in here and catch the falling knife. I didn't wait for the repair. The reason I did that, by the way, was because, first of all, this was unnatural. This happened to be BitMEX feedback liquidation loop, right? And until BitMEX went offline, this just continued people getting wrecked, right? Should you do that right now if you start seeing price crash? If price breaks down, do you catch that falling knife hoping that price spikes back up like that? No, I don't think that's a good idea. You know, if look, if that happens though and price starts crashing down like that, I will be there with you and letting you know where I feel this safe place to start initiating positions is, because it's opportunity. It is definitely opportunity if it happens. Only you can't just step in there and try to catch the falling knife because you don't know where that's going to fall. You know, you have no idea. That's just gambling. You want to make calculated risks for calculated returns. All right, that's what trading and investing is all about. What are we else are we looking at over here? I want to take a look at this chart by Trading Shot, right? And we're all familiar with the cycles. This is the first cycle over here in yellow. This is the 2012 cycle. Then we're looking at the last cycle in 2016 over here in purple, and it's very clear to notice now. Many of us we don't really look at this particular cycle, and why is that? And we're gonna look at it today. Why is that? Well, the market, when you're going from like a penny and up, is really unnatural, right? First of all, the data available is like there wasn't even traded. Bitcoin wasn't even traded on exchanges for the most part, and then it was just on Mt. Gox. Is it an anomaly of data? Yeah. Does it make more sense to kind of not count this? In my view, but listen, if you want to consult it and you want to say that this cycle was very short and aggressive, yeah, that's the truth. That happened. Okay. And then the second cycle, right? This was obviously explosive, right? And I could say that this cycle is actually longer in length and shorter in returns, right? And then I could add the third data point that we have, right? Or the second, if you're not counting this, and I could say, well, again, I saw diminishing returns and I saw a lengthening cycle, right? So listen, why I don't think that people should consult past cycles, because it's only 2 or 3 data points, and say that like, well, we have the 4-year cycle, we have the bull market phase, the bear market phase, and the accumulation phase. I do think they should consult 2 data points or 3 data points when it comes to looking at whether or not we're having lengthening cycles and diminishing returns, right? No, I joke. That's a little bit of sarcasm over there. I don't believe that. Now, is it possible that we see in this cycle diminishing returns, right? And by the way, this cycle to this cycle was about 1/3 the return. And if we have 1/3 the return again, that puts us at Bitcoin $160,000, right? And that's how, when I started laying out the bullish case for Bitcoin, over here, and in this area over here with CTM accumulating strong, positioning themselves strong, right? I said, okay, well, listen, what are my projections for the coming bull market? Well, I have to use diminishing returns, right? I have to use diminishing returns because it's the only way I can make some type of calculated guess about what is going to happen. And the number I came out with and I presented to all of you and many times was $160,000. And then I said, okay, that means that like 140, mission accomplished. Everything you're doing now, do it so that if we hit $140,000, you could say I accomplished every financial goal that I wanted to accomplish during that bull market, right? That's using diminishing return. Then I'm watching what's happening and I'm not seeing. Do you notice how that's yellow cycle, right? Then the purple one under it, like there's space over here, like legitimate space as you see this cycle showing diminishing returns from the last. Just as between this first cycle, which I don't count, but in this particular day, I'm going to talk about it with you all since it's here. You see the yellow cycle showing legitimate space as it has diminishing returns, right? So the charts don't lie, and you have to follow what's on the charts. Are you seeing the current cycle here in orange, right? With legitimate space between the last cycle, the purple one, and then you could say, well, it's very clear we're having diminishing returns. No, obviously, if you're looking at the chart, you're seeing price closely, actually outperforming at portions and closely aligned with the last one, and then outperforming again, right? And and that's what you're seeing. So you're seeing it closely mirror the previous cycle. Now, would you go on to venture or guess that what happens the rest of this cycle is that all from here on in that then we see the separation to the downside and we see a lengthening cycle? And if that happens, what does it look like? Where does price peak out? Is it somewhere into around 130,000? Is it somewhere around $200,000? Or that's I don't know. I don't. It's hard for me to do that. Now I could see, for example, there was approximately 85 days over here, and I give a variation of 85 days. Is it possible that this current cycle lasts approximately 85 days later? Well, that seems plausible. It's entirely possible. I don't have any idea of what's going to happen in the future. I could only look, past performance is not indicative of future results, but there's no other map you have than to go off of what happened when you're dealing with programmable money. The monetary supply is coded in. You know that there's a halving every 210,000 blocks of the miner's reward. You know this sends a shock through the system, a supply shock, setting off a bull market phase. Now, that was contested before it happened, right? That was my thesis. May 2020 is the halving. It was contested whether or not that was going to happen, or the halving was priced in, right? Well, in hindsight, one's correct now and one's wrong. The halving was not priced in. Now it remains to be seen, is this cycle different? Are we going to see an actual shorter cycle? People are saying we're in a bear market. And if we're in a bear market in Bitcoin, that reasons to believe that we're going to trade down 80-85% from the all-time high, right? And then what happens from there? Do we go into some type of prolonged accumulation stage into the next halving event? I don't know. We would be in uncharted territories if that were to occur. It doesn't seem probable to be using that as my thesis. Actually, my thesis has not changed since I outlaid it. And if you looked at what happened, right, here's the bottom, right? Before all of this transpired, I envisioned what was going to happen and then put my money behind it, right? Now we're halfway through, or what the person that got here, right? The person that, like, before it happened, I wasn't saying, listen, we're looking at diminishing returns and we're only going to see Bitcoin in 2021 trade to $20,000, right? If I had been telling you that, and that's what, and then we can't, you would have to be like, well, you're dead wrong. You're not even close to what happened. Now, you could then say, 3 months later, if price crashes down and then is around that area, you could be like, well, you were right. You were right. What happened was that we had this uber easy monetary conditions and it caused this massive speculations. And you know what, Jordan? Like, you could take that away and you could just, like, say on average, that's what happened. And then you would be right. But to date, that doesn't seem to be what's occurring, right? Fast forward, we'll see what happens. But right now, I'm going to have to go with everything that I have been envisioning is transpiring. What do I think happens going forward, right? I want to consult those who have a history of being correct, right? Sincerely. So if I'm looking at this past cycle on this chart with this purple line, and I'm following what's happening over here with the current cycle, I don't believe that we're going to see price come down over here and lengthening and come up with diminishing returns or increasing returns. If price gets above $200,000, it's not diminishing returns this cycle. It's actually increasing returns, right? The window between 160,000 and 200,000, I'll be like, it's a tie. No one wins, right? 160,000 and below is diminishing returns, right? I have not seen anyone out there who has a history of being remotely correct on Bitcoin calling for this cycle to peak at $65,000. I see a lot of retail out there who have just been introduced to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin talking about that, like, things are very bearish. The only person I know with any trading experience out there that became bearish on Bitcoin, right, was Peter Brandt, and he felt like Bitcoin's going to go down to $20,000. And then he said from there it should go sharply up, you know. So, he might be right. And if you're looking at where he is right, he has an opportunity if price crashes roughly another 35, or so, that he's correct. So that's possible, right? But what I think happens over here is actually that one of two things. If we mirror the rest going out of here of this purple line, right? That would make sense. We've stayed within it, right? And above it. But I don't think that's what happens. What I think is going to happen is as soon as we cross the most important trend line in crypto, that this thing is going to take off again. I think what is happening right now is that the markets are watching what the Fed's doing, and people got a little concerned and or worried that the Fed was going to start tapering, and they were going to start tapering quickly. And I don't think that's the case. The Fed has been very clear in their messaging this week. By the way, I said it when Powell spoke at the last FOMC meeting weeks ago, right? Do not look for do not look for any tightening. If anything, they're going to have to increase their quantitative easing purchases, right? And then, Powell testified this week before lawmakers, and he said he was very clear, we're not tapering anytime soon. And then you see the messaging from Yellen yesterday after the closing bell. Well, it looks like we have several more months of rapid inflation. Come on, the headlines have changed drastically. Do you think Bitcoin's ahead? But Jordan, yields are falling. Yields are falling right now, right? We talked about this really well in the Discord yesterday on the macro channel. We were talking about the fact that we're seeing right now yields falling. Remember when we talked about, what was it, March, April? Is it the possibility that the Fed had begun stealth yield curve control, right? In hindsight, in retrospect, it looks like, hey, maybe that, we have no idea. We could only speculate on that. But hey, you know what? Maybe that was correct. A lot of people are out there. Kathy Woods is out on the making the rounds, and she's talking about how, like, we're going to see a massive deflationary event, right? That right now we're going to see a massive deflationary event. Everyone who's talking about inflation is wrong, and you're seeing yields come down right now, right? Well, how do you measure inflation, right? Because when everyone was looking at the CPI to measure inflation, I said that's ridiculous. Why is that ridiculous? Because prices of everything that you use in your daily life continue to go up and have continued to go up for over the last decade. So if you're using CPI and you're just artificially measuring inflation, but even doing that and using their own gauge, inflation is now out of control, right? And now they're talking about that continuing, right? So what's Kathy talking about? So I said, you know what? I wish I knew in March 2020 when the Fed expanded their balance sheet by $4.1 trillion. And, I was under the impression that was going to be uber asset inflationary, what she thought. Because when you have people telling me now that going forward we're going to see deflation, I want to know whether or not the last 15 months they had been right or wrong, right? So we found the video with her talking with Anthony Pompilano over a year ago, and she was talking about how she felt that we were going to see deflation, and anyone who was looking for inflation was wrong, right? So there you go. What do we see forward? Is this the reason I talk about it? Is to say, well, what are the macro conditions right now going forward as we believe that we're potentially halfway through the cycle, right? And they continue to be uber easy. Now, what has happened in this area? What has happened in this area that has caused what could be viewed as a little bit of an anomaly? Well, we've seen China abandon mining of Bitcoin, and we saw the largest amount of hash rate go offline ever. And what happened? Did the Bitcoin Council have to step in and like print extra Bitcoin? No, that's not what happened, right? There was a pre-coded difficulty adjustment. It took place. The market is adjusting, and what you're seeing here will be talked about decades in the future. What you're seeing here is absolute eloquent brilliance, and the market is adjusting, and everything continues. And every 10 minutes, or is it now 12 minutes, or is it back to 10 minutes? You're seeing a new block confirmed on the public ledger on the most secure network in the world. And there's a lot of moving pieces out there. There's a lot of attacks. Did you see that Europe, the ECB right now, is trying to ban proof of work? Why? Because it's the greatest threat to their monetary system. The greatest intervention of in modern history, right? So anyway, what else are we talking about? The S&P 500 this morning over here is barely green over here. Continues that bullish structure. There's nothing for us to be concerned or worried about. What about the Nasdaq? How's that looking? This looks a little bit precarious. We could be getting ready to break down. What I wanted to do with all of you is make sure over here that we have the correct trend lines in place, right? What I see this line over here, I just need to clone it while I'm with you. I'm going to bring it down and just see if there's any other place that belongs. And I don't see it. For sure, no. All right. And just, yeah, so that doesn't belong there. I'm going to get right. We're sticking with everything we have over here. And I'm come down to the 8-hour right now. Right? Watch out. This thing looks like it could potentially be rolling over. Right? I'm not saying at this particular moment there's any type of breakdown, but we are very close. And if this rolls over, at that point, I'm going to be calling here on CTM probably on Monday, if it's happening on Monday or Tuesday, that we are looking for at the beginning of a correction on the NASDAQ. But here right now, we are just probably 1% below all-time highs, right? Not even, less than 1% below all-time highs. Holding so far this evening. It's something to watch and watch closely right now. So I'm going to make sure that we keep our attention on it. The dollar, you know what? It's into resistance and it's consolidating into that neckline. It's a big deal. A break above that neckline, we could see continued dollar strength. Now, is that any type of friction or concern to Bitcoin? Not in my view. And why I say that, I've shown you at the strongest points when the dollar in the past has acted the strongest, Bitcoin has outperformed. When the dollar's trading between 95 and above, Bitcoin has outperformed. Now, it's true, if the dollar does hold this resistance over here and gets rejected, right, and starts breaking down, and then actually breaks down outside of this. What is this, by the way? What is this pattern we're seeing? I don't know. But if we break up, it's bullish. If we break down, it's bearish. That I do know. And a big move is coming as we see this big consolidation. Do you remember like when we saw that big consolidation on the S&P around November of 2020? Just let me point it out to you over here because we were watching that as that occurred, right? Let me find, there it is, right over here. This was a big consolidation pattern, right? And it led to a big move. Is that what's happening right now on the DXY? Could you see it? That's what I'm watching for. I don't know if this breaks to the upside or downside. If this breaks down, yes, that's jet fuel for a Bitcoin. A weaker dollar is exactly the whole point of the trade. Actually, Michael had it right here, right? This is Michael this morning or on Twitter, and he's saying, look, like this is the case for Bitcoin, right? And is it possible that the US dollar enters some type of event that we saw, yeah, it's the ultimate hedge and you all know it, right? But this is Bitcoin versus the dollar and it's a massive uptrend, right? And right now, I see a pullback in that uptrend. I'm buying the dip. I bought the dip, right? Now, is it possible this thing rolls over and goes to zero? Yeah. Understand that you have risk. There is seriously no free money out there. There is no reward without risk. There is a possibility that this investment, is there a possibility that China has quantum computers and they took all their hash power offline because as they launch the digital yuan, they're going to, defeat Bitcoin? I mean, listen, science fiction becomes reality. Who knows? There are risks out there. Is it possible that those, I wanted to say diabolical, and that is correct, but that those people out there that want to shut off the internet in order to go ahead and continue to suffocate the life out of the people earning a livelihood in order to institute some type of like I forget, universal basic income, right? And listen, everything and anything is possible in this world. I tend to go with the markets are not crashing, right? That everything is going to continue as we look at it. That our children and our children's future, children and their children's children are going to have a beautiful future. because people like me and you are out there creating one for them. Like, that's my base case. And if something unravels, you all know that together we're always looking around us. We have that situational awareness for when that opportunity comes and the markets are crashing, that's where we're going to be there. Now, if it's a slow train wreck, right? And we see Bitcoin, for example, if it's a slow train wreck and from here, Bitcoin continues to slowly curl down and never, and it bleeds out in a slow death. Like, would you sell your Bitcoin if price came, if your average entry was 9,500 and Bitcoin came back to 9,500, would you sell your Bitcoin and get out? These are, I mean, you've asked these questions to yourself, right? Do you know where your stop loss is on your trade, or what are you doing? And I've told you people don't like it. When it comes to my spot position, my stop loss is 0, and that's what it is. Oh my gosh, his stop loss 0. What is he talking about? And why would I even listen to anything he says because of that? Listen, I hope I never have to say I'm right. I hope that the internet does stay online. I hope there's no type of risk event that causes for a short time the price to look like that before it looks like that. But I understand the bullish case for Bitcoin, and I understand that if there is any type of black swan event that occurs like this, that I'm not selling mine. I'm not giving up mine. Anyway, let's go out with some honeymoon over here. Let me check in with all of you, see what's going on, and perhaps take it from there if there's any good questions or comments to build off of. Likes. We are light on likes. I have to look at gold and silver. Thank you, Craig. Did she predict the V-shaped recovery? Well, she wasn't on Vassal. This is not an attack against Kathy. We were just talking about that Kathy right now is calling for deflation, right? So we said, okay, well, let's look at her history. What happened during that pivotal event when the Fed expanded the monetary supply? And she said at that particular time that she expects deflation over the next year and a half, 2 years, right? She's dead wrong. There's no way about that. And that was just talking about why when she's talking about what happens next with deflation, right? Anyway, it's not an attack versus Kathy or anything like that whatsoever. Please don't take it as that. We're just looking at what happened. Boom, 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 boom. Look, this is a good question. I want to talk about this in 1 second. There was one other thing I wanted to say. By the way, Heath on Trade Talk continue to put out fire. Make sure that you're following Heath, watching his content. There it is over here, Blue Magic, right? Would I sell if Bitcoin went to $3,500 and was still bleeding? Why? I mean, why? So is it possible that, all right, let's talk about this really quick, and then I want to look at gold and silver. I want to ask, like, hey, what's going on if we're seeing inflation? Why is gold not doing anything? And does gold have the potential to do anything and anything soon? You know, but what was the Bitcoin went down to $3,500? Would I exit my Bitcoin trade? And but for what reason? I mean, is there something out there, another cryptocurrency that could be better than Bitcoin? Could perhaps central bank digital currency, whether it's the digital yuan, the digital dollar, or the Libra, now the whatever Demium, could that be better than Bitcoin? Well, no, those things are centrally controlled. Those are not decentralized. They're not trustless. They're not borderless. Worse, they could take it away from you at any particular time they want. They could cut you off from the system, and they could inflate the supply whenever they feel like, right? All right, so there's no competition there. Well, what about some random altcoin? Could there, remember in 2017, what's the next Bitcoin? That was the whole, like, altcoin speculation. And now everyone has, they even forked Bitcoin, made the blocks bigger. There's no better Bitcoin. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. Like it, love it, whatever. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. It's the only one with the immaculate conception, right? So what about like Ethereum, right? Now there's the debate of whether or not like something like Cardano or whatever might potentially replace Ethereum. Not likely, right? But no one is competing versus Bitcoin. All right. So what else? Bitcoin 3,500. I mean, why are we having that conversation anyway? If Bitcoin fails and Bitcoin goes to zero, I'm all in here, and I'm losing my investment, right? I'm betting on Bitcoin, right? You don't like you, but you all understand why, and you all understand the bullish case for Bitcoin. So I'm not really going to get into that with you. Like, there's no way you put half your net worth behind Bitcoin unless you understand Bitcoin. Plain and simple. And when you do that, especially when you got 6 kids, you understand the risk you're taking and why you're taking it. Now, some people think that like saving those dollars is not risky. I'm gonna, in my bank account, and it's gonna keep dollar cost averaging, saving those dollars. To me, that's really risky. Why? Because I see the purchasing power of the dollar throughout my lifetime declining and declining rapidly. But a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, 2018, I was having conversations with people, talking to them about the de-dollarization that was taking place and how the US was using the dollar as a financial weapon, and it was forcing other countries to abandon the dollar. They thought that was crazy talk. And now we have Russia completely de-dollarized. Russia doesn't hold any dollars anymore. You see the euro gaining traction worldwide. Now, maybe only 5% of transactions worldwide increased last year in traded in euros than in dollars. That's a big deal, though, right? And you're seeing in the future, right, that continued de-dollarization now clear as day taking place. Does that mean the dollar's going away? Probably not. Does that mean that the dollar won't be the strongest currency for the foreseeable future? No, probably it is. Probably that's my base case. Is it possible that the dollar now continues, instead of devaluing 7% a year, starts devaluing 15% a year? Yeah, that's entirely possible. That's what we're seeing right now. And we're not seeing the Fed lighten up on their QE purchases. They're continuing $1.4 trillion a year. But we all know that, because that was the loudest and clearest about that, right? Going back to March 2020, everyone following CTM knew that I was the loudest and clearing about the greatest signal in the markets and what we continue to track. None of that has changed, right? So what about gold and silver? How come they're not bid? What's going on over here? And if you look at like Bitcoin up in 12 months, a nice, 250%, what's the shiny stuff doing in that particular time? Let's go back. This is July, right? and gold's up 5%. What about the Nasdaq? Because the Nasdaq's the leader here when it comes to the indexes. And I go back to July, that's up 35%. Wow. Wow. Where were you? What are you doing? And why? So what about gold? Listen, gold is the most heavily manipulated instrument in the world. But we all know that, right? You do know that, right? Because we've been very clear about that for a long time. Now, is it possible and or probable that, the IMF right now, they continue to gain more power? $650 billion of debt was just issued under the SDR. The White House was like, yeah, we want to give them control. Is that something that is going to continue to see take place and trend? Are the IMF CBDCs going to be the new foundation of the future financial system, backed by a basket of currencies and including gold? Yeah, that's all entirely possible. It's a small allocation of gold, right? Is it possible that Russia and or China together are going to be like, listen, forget this current system. We're sitting down. We're making rules for another system. We got a bunch of gold. We have a seat at the table, and gold will be revalued overnight. Yeah, that seems to me to be one of the most probable cases. Now, trying to time that's not something I could do. That could be tomorrow, or that could be 7 years from now, or it could be 12 years from now or longer. I have no idea, but I do know that the U.S. is going to try to, or when I say U.S., I mean the Federal Reserve and whoever their shareholders are going to probably try to hold on to the current system and keep that music playing for as long as they can. So gold continues to be heavily, heavily, heavily manipulated. Is it possible we get some type of breakout on the metals? Is it possible that the Wall Street Bets, by the way, is such a small little blip of the overall those who are pushing the precious metals, right? And most of you are sitting on precious metals and have been for a long time. And that's for me, that's always been insurance. Now, Bitcoin is not insurance for me. It's not an insurance policy. Bitcoin is what I perceive to be the safest and best investment, right? Now, the precious metals that I own, those are an insurance policy. Whereas, if the system breaks, at least I'm holding on to money. Hopefully that never plays out. What's happening over here on silver? We're trading off again 1% today. Gold's trading off 1%. The horizontal, I didn't get to say this to you yesterday. The horizontal resistance is being held, right? I did this pre-stream yesterday with myself and was looking at what was going on with silver, and I wanted to share with you that I think that the safe entry is getting above the resistance over here, right? Now this looks healthy in the fact that you were trading into that breakout retest occurring right now. We don't know if this, resumes off or fails, but with this resistance above overhead, I think you got to wait for 2630 to clear before you start taking any trades on that. At this point, is it you hear my cadence? Obviously, I don't know. Do you hear my cadence? The unsurety is the biggest signal you can find across the markets if you follow regularly what's going on in CTM, and that's what it remains. Is it better waiting for some type of breakout above? Maybe. You get an entry though. Whether it's resuming off this, I would wait for that resistance to clear. The risk to reward is there. You have a greater than 2 and 1 just into the resistance. So if you're really interested in it, I don't see why not taking it. But I don't think that's where the opportunity is. I think it's insurance. I don't think it's the best or safest investment out there. Let me place just a little bit more honeymoon just in case to see if there's anything else we need to catch up on. Thank you, Joseph. Let's just, guess, nuance of language over there. Like anytime you make an investment, you're making a bet, right? Like if I buy equities over here, if I'm buying the indexes, I'm making a bet, right? That's what it is. It's an investment. It's a bet, right? So when I talk about the safest bet, what I mean that it offers the least amount of risk with the greatest potential for return. Now I was very clear and the earliest and the longest that Ethereum is going to outperform Bitcoin during the bull market phase over here, right? And but that's not the safest bet. It's a speculative play. And if you're interested in speculating, that's where you want, but that's when you're talking about what's the safest bet, I'm talking about what offers the highest return with the least amount of risk. All right. GoldenEye, just want to make sure that we're all here on the same page. It's all about iron sharpens an iron. When I started this channel from the beginning, right, and I told you all, listen, the more information I could share with you all from my 20 years experience in the market, the more that I could help, you level up. And then all of a sudden, it's going to become this feedback loop where we continue to lift each other up. And now a year and a half later, we see the fruits of that. It's CTM all over the place all day long. And the amount of knowledge continues to increase. And it truly is. Did you see Tom this week? It's iron sharpens iron. And we continue to uplift all each other. That right there, my friends, is building better. Gotta understand the money, Liberty. Gotta understand it. Pietro, I mean, look, there's no way. You're right. Look, what a question. For you're not even talking about the current macro climate. What you're saying is, how could we even reconcile the fact that we are seeing that massive adoption takes place? I haven't learned this. I haven't worked on this, and I won't until we're back in the office. But when I talk about, like, here's that tweet Raul put out. When you look at the videos that I was doing in 2019, I was talking about you have to look at Bitcoin like the adoption taking place on the internet. That was back over here, right? Fast forward a year and a half, we're now over here, and adoption of Bitcoin is actually outpacing the adoption of the internet. Pietro saying, well, how can we reconcile entering a bear market when adoption continues to be so strong? If you do look at the amount of Bitcoin addresses that have been created, I don't know over what time frame, I'm going to say the last 60 days, it is significantly down. It was significantly higher fast forward 90 days earlier, but it's significantly down, right? Now, for what reasons is that occurring? Is that noise? Is that long-term trend? It's still data, and you have to consult it. Now, could that rapidly change, as soon as when price breaks the most important trend line in crypto and momentum returns, and once we take out $65,000 and everyone wants to buy Bitcoin again, no one wants to buy now, right? Everyone's bearish right now, right? So listen, I can't. There's no way that I believe that we are currently at the top of the bull market over here and that we're seeing a shorter cycle with shorter returns. I don't think this is the top. I don't think that we saw a shorter cycle. I don't think we saw massively diminishing returns. I think that if you look at what's happening, we continue to be an average of the past 2 cycles. We are seeing more volatility to the upside than the last cycle, less than the 2012 cycle. Further, bigger volatility to the downside than we saw last cycle, especially during mid-cycle. We're mid-cycle right now. We saw that massive 40% move. This time it's a 53% move. Here it was a 70% move. A 70% move. So we're seeing an average. Now, the consolidation here was longer so far than we're seeing right now, and it was here shorter. Again, we're seeing an average. I maintain that we're going to see a massively big up move the remainder of this Bitcoin bull market over here. A massively big up move, and that we're going to see increasing returns from the last cycle. Now, listen, I'm not an oracle. I know that up until now, I've been on the right side. Anything could happen. Really, anything could happen. And, and it's even possible that, like, listen, we just hit diminishing returns. That's all possible. That's not a fail. It's mission accomplished. All right, everyone. Have a great weekend. Thanks for spending this hour with me here on this Friday. I wish you all a beautiful day. I wish you all, it's not always easy. There's many days that we all struggle, and, if anyone out there is just having, a hard day, just lots of love towards you, your way. It's always, helpful for me to remember when things are difficult, things are hard, to just keep in mind that they're not always going to be that way. And usually you're probably at the lull of a wave. And from here on in, things are going to get a little bit better, a little bit brighter. And also when things are really going really well and really easy, and you're on a high, just to remember, it's not always going to be like that either, and try to maintain just that levelness always. But lots of good vibes, lots of love to you all. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not, welcome back. Have a beautiful day, everyone. And I'll talk to you on Monday.
markets, analyzing the charts, hitting projected targets within the margin. Find the flow, sip the matcha, and wait for the waves to come in with lobsters. The kind-hearted Jordan Fosters, working smarter, not harder to move the markers. On his way to conquer, trading and investing, drinking the coffee while reflecting on the blessing. The markets are not crashing, the prices might be slashing just to pretend they're in fashion. Hit the like button, comments and smash it. Boom, boom, Jordan in the room, grab the bull by the horns and to the moon. Flow from the plateau, make the play. Boom, boom, it's a taco day.
It's a taco day. It's a taco day.
Boom. All right, everyone. Beautiful, beautiful day. Beautiful weekend. Have a wonderful, 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 wonderful weekend. I'll see you all on Monday. We're going to do it again. We're going to take a look at the markets and make sure we have that clarity risk event over the weekend. Nevertheless, right? Is it possible because of the grayscale unlocking FUD that we see some type of market sell-off? Yes, it is. Is it possible that next week, as Jack and Elon sit down together to discuss how Bitcoin incentivizes clean energy, that we see a massive narrative shift in the market? Yes, it is. Either which way, everything remains unclear. It remains unclear until we break this line, right? Price is going sideways for 2 months now. Are we seeing what we saw at the top? Are we seeing a slow rollover occur now on the downside? I don't know. It's too soon to tell. I'm not trying. Do we need to see capitulation in order to go up? No. That's one possible outcome. We don't know that that will happen. We could have a slow rounding bottom occur over here. That could also occur. Could we break down over here, put in another leg, consolidate again, put in another leg, and 20,000 doesn't hold? Yeah. I don't know what to make of all of that if that's happening, right? Like something is very weird, something's very off, but is it possible at that point does this change? Right? If we break down below 20,000, is it the most important trend line? Not in crypto anymore? No. Remember what happened over here, right? Let me just show you, like in the past, what we did over here on this channel and what we were watching. Let me go on the log chart. I'm just trying to get this up. Stay with me. All right. What's going on? Just stay with me. Keep on swimming. There we go. Right? You all remember this famous trend line that we monitored and watched what seemed like forever. It was the past bull market all-time high, right? The most important trend line in crypto right now. And even if price dumps down, that is still the technical break for when the next bull market begins. Now, I don't think we're in a bear market, and I don't think we're going to see an 85% drawdown. You know, I don't think that we're going to be in some type of bear market and then prolonged accumulation phase until we get to the next halving. I think that we're mid-cycle. Nevertheless, if we break down further, if we break down further, it doesn't mean that this line becomes out of play. It's as very much as in play as it was for this prolonged 2-year, 3-year period. All right, there we go. You know, obviously, I just really enjoy spending the time that I do with all of you. Never in a rush to go. But right now, I'm going to get the kids up. We're going to have some breakfast and enjoy this day. All right, everyone. I'll talk to you soon.